Watching this video, you're going to fall into one of two categories. Category number one, you probably can identify, oh wow, when I was younger, like growing up, my days were not always filled with rainbows and sunshine and butterflies and unicorns and Skittles all over the place. And in fact, many of us dealt with some pretty deep, dark, and depressing things as we were growing up. And category number two, you might say, no, I had a pretty good childhood. My parents were great, my family was great, and we went on vacations, we did a lot of stuff, and it was a great childhood. Yet, no matter where you fall on that spectrum of bright or dark, of sunny or cloudy, you probably still have some stuff that may have followed you throughout childhood into adulthood. And many of the people that I work with, who are my clients or who are in my programs, they actually have experienced very similar things to what I experienced when I was younger. Growing up, one of my parents was a severe alcoholic and my brother was a heroin addict. And as a consequence of that, I had to deal with some pretty heavy stuff as a kid. I had to solve adult-like problems with childlike resources. And as a consequence of that, a lot of those coping mechanisms spilled into my adult life as well. And it wasn't until I was about 25, 26, 27 years old that I realized it and that I started to do some of my own deep inner work. And I can now say that things are a lot better. But what are some of those coping mechanisms that sometimes spill into our adult life and we start solving adult problems with childlike resources, just like we did when we were a child? Well, me, just like many of the clients that I've worked with before, a lot of people, one of the only ways they can be heard if they have chaos or conflict in their family is to yell and to scream in order to get attention, or to throw temper tantrums, or to cry in order to be heard, in order to be seen. And guess what? That can sometimes spill over into our adult life where we become frustrated way too easily. We feel like we're always on edge, and eventually we start avoiding things that may make us feel like that. It causes us to get into some pretty destructive relationships. We cause destructive patterns. In fact, other coping mechanisms could even be chronic people pleasing, what we call please and appease. It could be you're trying to be everything for everyone, like I was. I was constantly trying to take care of people. Another one is putting everybody else before you, which, by the way, you've probably heard the oxygen mask when you're on a plane and the oxygen masks fall from the ceiling. You've got to put yours on first so you can help the other people around you. And even though that makes sense, many times it's difficult for us to feel, and it's difficult for us to practice that in our own lives because we fear how other people are going to perceive us if we do put ourselves first. These are all some pretty nasty coping mechanisms that can also follow us into our professional lives as well. There are times where we build up resentment. There are times where we build up anger. There are times where we build up guilt. There are times where we build up these inner feelings of like taken advantage of and people walking all over us because we lack boundaries. There are other times where we will become chronic procrastinators, or we will fill our time with things that are not productive and they're just time fillers or time wasters, such as binge watching YouTube videos, or such as binge watching television series instead of working on yourself, or instead of doing something that you'd rather be doing. And one of the main reasons is because there are these little mechanisms, these coping mechanisms in your mind that they just want to keep the peace. And one of the easy ways to keep the peace is to distract from anything that is going to lead you to grow. Because when you grow, change happens. And many of us fear change. So this is where most of the people I work with are business professionals or entrepreneurs or executives who've made really big wins in their life. However, they struggle internally. Inside, they have a lot of internal chaos. They have a lot of internal conflict. They're constantly questioning themselves. And it spills over into so many different areas of their life. Now, wherever you fall on that spectrum, you might have had a happy, clean, pristine childhood, or your childhood may have been filled with darkness and destruction like mine was. And I had great times in my childhood too, don't get me wrong. I had very good times, yet I also know that the bad times, many of those outweighed many of the good times because I felt like I was constantly on edge, constantly scanning, waiting for the next shoe to drop, waiting for the next problem to happen, waiting for the next person to get high, or waiting for my brother to pass out in the mashed potatoes because he was too doped up. And those are things, by the way, that he and I look back upon now and we're like, remember when you did that? He's like, no, I don't remember. He's like, but I understand how that could have really bothered you. And he's good now, he's clean, he's gone through recovery, which is great. Yet these things that follow us throughout our lives and they become destructive patterns, they can really hold us back. And many of us are held back from the past. Many of us are holding ourselves back in fear that the past is going to repeat itself, even though it usually won't. So what do you do about it? Well, there are 3 shifts to be aware of. And these 3 shifts are the identity shift, the belief shift, and also the release shift, or the letting go shift. And it's really important that you get good at these 3 things, so that way all those things that are stuck in your nervous system, they don't bother you as much anymore. You feel a lot more free and liberated from those things. You feel more in alignment with your true self, and also it empowers you to get more work done, to focus more on you, to have more of a sense of purpose, power, passion, pride, confidence, self-esteem. And here's how we do it. Step 1, the identity shift. A lot of people, they say, I'm going to write down all of these attributes that I want. Which could be a really good strategy because there is this concept that tells us we get more of what we focus on. If we focus more on the good things, that's what we're going to get. And that can be true. I have said that and taught that to many people before. And yes, that can be true with the right things. However, there is another principle that's easier for people to grasp at first, which is called the inverse identity. And that takes about an hour or so to lead a person through, yet it's very enlightening, it's very inspiring, it's very empowering, it's very eye-opening. And number 2 is what I call the belief shift. You see, we have all these limiting beliefs that we have acquired all throughout different parts of life. And these limiting belief systems, they get stuck in our mind, they hold us back and they limit us. That's why they're called limiting belief systems. I also like to call it our internal BS because that's exactly what they are. So we've got to become aware of what those belief systems are, and we've got to replace them with other belief systems, with better belief systems. We've got to update our belief systems. We do this by updating our self-talk and our perspective of our path that has led us to where we are today. And number 3, the third thing that you can do, subconscious letting go. Letting go, release and let go of what you no longer need, of those toxic patterns, letting go of resentment, letting go of guilt, letting go of anger, letting go of doubt, letting go of all that. And when you can embrace those 3 aspects, it's like, it's like the choir sings in the background and you feel like a weight is lifted off your shoulders. You feel more empowered, you feel more able to do things, you feel more confident, you can speak up for yourself much more, you can be more true to who you are. So how do you do this? Well, there are 2 ways. There are 2 ways you can do this. Way number 1, you can do what I did. You can read a bunch of books, you can listen to them on Audible, you can take a bunch of courses to figure this out, you can do a lot of inner work by doing a lot of outer work. And that can take a very long time. When I say very long time, I mean it can take years. And there's not even any guarantee then because you might not even be reading the right books. You might not even be doing the right inner work. And I'm like a personal and professional self-help junkie. Like I love it. So I love binge watching YouTube videos while I'm at the gym or like while I'm driving, I'll have something playing in the background. And I love that. However, it's one thing to listen to that, it's another to apply it. And what I do is I help other people apply it by using not just the principles, but also hypnotic principles with it as well. So the work that we're doing is a lot deeper than going to like 5 years of therapy. And so you might be wondering, you're like, okay, so how do we do this type of work with you? So I just want to share this. Every once in a while, I do intensive challenges. And coming up, I have a 3-day challenge. I know many of you have probably seen it or you've gotten my emails if you're on my email list or you've seen me post about it on social media. And in this 3-day challenge, day 1, we're working all about the identity shift through the inverse identity model. And I'm also going to be helping you expand your awareness so you can become crystal clear as to what it means for you to switch your identity, to take on that alter ego that you need to take on in order to do what you need to do and get what you want to get. So that's day 1. And that takes about an hour or so. Day 2 is all about the BS. It's all about the belief systems, switching the limiting belief systems to empowering belief systems. And day 3 is all about letting go, because we can identify the identity, we can bring on the belief systems, but it's going to be completely useless if we don't let go of all of the things that are clogging our mind and clogging our nervous system. Can you really make changes in 3 days? Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just 3 days, it's 1 hour a day for 3 days. And not only is it 1 hour a day for 3 days, but it's empowering. It is an empower hour. Each day, you're going to be doing these deep discoveries, and the work can continue beyond the 3 days as well. I'm going to be laying the groundwork for you. I'm going to be setting the foundation with you, and I'm going to be guiding you and leading you through it. So that way, you can gain access to what you need to gain access to inside. So that way, you can have what I like to call the carryover effect, where the work you do inside spills over into other areas of your life powerfully, productively, and profoundly. The results of this, you don't procrastinate on things as much as you used to anymore. The other profound effect of this, you can handle challenges and work your way through them instead of getting stuck inside them. You become more productive, you become more focused, you become more confident, because it takes a lot of energy to run those problems and those coping mechanisms constantly. It takes a lot of energy to do that. So now that we're freeing up that energy, you can explore and expend it into other places. So with that said, if you really do want to do this inner work, and I know a lot of people are saying like, oh, I need to do this, but it can't just be a need, it has to be a want. If you really want to do this work over 3 days of getting leadership, direction, and guidance from me, who's someone who's led thousands of people through this and guided myself through it as well, then I highly recommend you join the challenge. I invite you to join the challenge. And it's not just a challenge, it's an intensive where we can do some of that deep inner work together. With that said, my friends, I hope to see you there. As always, be well, do good, and be true to who you are, and happy healing.